Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome, one and all, to this special edition of Hangin with Who. Matter of fact, One Media, I think I'm going to have to move you. And yes, I know Rondon, I am live, so it is now time for me to reiterate, as I said, welcome one and all to this special edition of Hanging with Who right here on mspwaves.com, right here in the PAL Discord, where you can find us hanging out right here in the chat room, in the audience chat. Hopefully you all can hang. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here with you all on this lovely, sunny, but a little bit cold afternoon, almost evening, here in the awesome city of Asheville, North Carolina. Yes, that is our home base currently, and probably will be for some time. Boy, we got a lot to talk about today. My head, suddenly, as soon as I realized that I was like 5 seconds into being on air, I kind of froze for a second because, I've been on a hiatus a little bit longer than intended. Some of you, if you've been following along, know that the last time I podcasted with you all was right around New Year's, and I was getting ready to make a big move, and which happened. I should say it's happening. Things have taken a little bit longer than anticipated as far as the whole settling process, and it's okay. I think that it's a little bit frustrating at first for all of us when we go through these changes and these transitions, and we have plans and we carry out plans and such, and when things don't necessarily go always as planned, not necessarily that things go wrong, just things, the universe has a way of taking its own time, and things unravel at their own pace, and it's not always at the pace we'd like, or we think, or we anticipate, or we want, and easier said than done, but you got to go with the flow, and once you get the hang of going with the flow, I think it gets easier. I don't think it ever gets super easy. I don't think it ever gets to a point where it's like, I'm just going with the flow and that's it, and it's just second nature. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I've certainly met people along the way that make it seem that way, but I don't know. I think it's in our nature to want to be somewhat controlling. Everything from our own thoughts to the weather. And as I'm talking to you, you're going to have to forgive me because I'm sipping on some excellent cider. It's called a Bold Rock cider. And one of the things that I'm going to talk a lot about on the show now that we're in Asheville, North Carolina, I didn't realize upon moving here that it has one of the highest concentrations of local breweries in the world. I don't know if it's number one on the East Coast, I believe. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research and get back to you on that. But been here about 3 months now, and I was told by a friend, we had a conversation about drinking beer. And I'm not a big drinker per se, but I enjoy good beer. I enjoy good wine. So my friend said, if you do, you're going to really like the beer culture here in Asheville. So at first, when I first landed, I didn't have much money to play with. I had to start working and catching us on some bills. And I said to him, as soon as I have a little bit of dollars to spare week after week, I'm going to come out and have some drinks, and I'm going to start exploring the beer culture, as you call it, here in Asheville, North Carolina. And so I did that. I've been doing that, and I'm really loving it. And we're going to we're going to talk a lot about that. And as One Media says, if you're following along with the chat, it is the home of Moog. A lot of people say Moog, it's Moog. So if you're not familiar, we talked about this before, actually, because I before moving here, if you could recall, the last time I took a hiatus, I came back and had let you guys know that I visited Asheville and I took a tour of the Moog factory, where I actually had shot some pictures and had talked to them about doing an interview for the podcast, and they were quite agreeable to that. Just not gotten around to it yet. Now that I live here, it's going to be a lot easier to get that done. Moog is no more than a 20-minute drive from where I'm living. Very easy to walk to from downtown Asheville. Actually, it's one of the biggest tourist attractions in town. And I'm going to kind of save my little spiel on Moog and how cool it is and how that plays into Asheville being the city that it is today. Because actually one of the things that we're also going to talk about today is now that we've relaunched the Hangin with Who podcast series here on Fridays on mspwaves.com. And I'll tell you really quick, I have given up my Monday slot. Some of you remember I was podcasting here on MSP also on Mondays, Monday afternoons, East Coast time. But I've had to give that up because one of the things we'll talk about a little bit more further down the line is when I touched down here in Asheville, I had to kind of make ends meet financially. So not just me, my family had to do so. So my wife who joined along weeks after the move, both her and I landed a full-time job at the same place. It's Monday through Thursday. It is about 10. So it's actually a full 40 hours because it's a 10-hour shift each time. I'm not going to tell you too much about it right now. I'm going to talk quite a bit about the job, and I'm actually going to hold on to this job for a little bit longer because it's going to tie into what's going to be developing here on the show week after week in the coming weeks. So one of the first things that I'll mention is that after today's launch, so we're now officially on season 4 of Hangin with Who. This is the first episode, and as things roll forward, we're going to be producing a 5-part series on Asheville, North Carolina. There are a number of reasons for this, besides the fact that it's a really cool city. Very, very, it's interesting because it's right smack in the middle of the Bible Belt. And if you drive 15, 20 minutes in either direction outside of the city, you're reminded pretty quickly that you're in the Deep South. But when you're in Asheville city limits, particularly downtown and in some of the hipper neighborhoods, you're really clueless that you're in the Deep South. Oh, that's if you guys can hear that barking, that's my new roommate, Lugnut. He's pretty awesome. And since I see my man John typing in the chat, I'm going to get to your questions, guys. I got to big up Can of Curate real quick, little side note. And I will tell you right about now, unfortunately, the webcam, couldn't get the webcam up and running. Long story, Windows 10 issue, just started updating everything. But you would normally see me here, my pretty mug here, and I'm smoking on some really nice California Outdoor, by the way. Been working a lot with some good cannabis lately, some really good organic outdoor. We're going to get into some debates later on in the show about outdoor versus indoor. It's something it's a debate that's been hotly taking place here in our household. And I've been working a lot with edibles. So, I might need a light. Anyway, so where was I? So 5-part series on Asheville. It was right smack in the middle of the Bible Belt in the Deep South, but the city itself, for the most part, kind of functions like a pretty big city. It's not so big in the sense of buildings and structures and things and hustle and bustle, but it is pretty spread out and there's a lot going on. It's one of the fastest growing cities in America currently. The locals think I'm crazy for saying this, but it is actually quite affordable. You got to consider the perspective. My wife and I are coming from the Northeast United States. I grew up mostly in New York and New Jersey. She's a New Jersey native. And so if you know anything about the Northeast United States, particularly those two states, it's hella expensive to get by. So living anywhere down south for the most part, is affordable compared to that area. And Asheville, I have to say, is affordable because while it's a little bit more expensive than most places around the South, it functions like a big city. There's a lot of culture and nightlife. There's great food. As I said before, amazing breweries. And because of the kind of city that it is, I'll talk a little bit at some point about how law enforcement seems to get by around here. The cops are pretty friendly. They make you kind of want to wave and say hello and have a nice day, officer. And so when you consider, it seems to draw a lot of hippies and hipsters and kind of woke type folk, and there's a tiny house community. There's a lot of people living off grid. There are a lot of people living in tents and cars that I will not call homeless. They will not call themselves homeless. It's kind of a lifestyle. It's a culture out here. And it works. It works very well. There's some of the locals and the natives are, they're not exactly happy about what's going on because it has made Asheville more expensive than a lot of the other bigger towns and cities around the South. But again, coming from the North and having spoken to a lot of transplants here in the city, it is absolutely, if you want to live in a big city that feels like a big city, has culture and nightlife, but is affordable, definitely consider Asheville, North Carolina, for sure. So as I said, what we're going to start doing in the coming weeks is week after week, we're going to be producing a 5-part series. One of the things we're going to cover is the beer culture, which, as I said, hey, Krim, what's going on? Welcome to you. Thank you for the warm welcomes, y'all. It's awesome. I got a couple of people who I've promised are going to get a chance to jump on the air here with me today, and you will. So bear with me as I sip on this lovely bold rock cider, smoke this lovely California outdoor, and fill you in on all the really cool goings on around here at the Movement 19 / Love Rain household. All right, so as I said, 5-part series. One of the things we're going to cover in the 5-part series, so let me backtrack now and actually tell you guys a little bit about this JOB that my wife and I have been engaged in. So as I said, after about a year and excuse me. Oh boy. After about a year and change on Steam It and with MSP Waves, I initially my intention was to transition into making that at least some portion of a full-time income, doing my thing, doing what we do as a family, doing what we do as artists, and that's still something that's in the works, but financially, we started to fall a little bit behind. As you all know, the market took a big hit. Crypto across the board went down, took a huge downturn, which had a tremendous effect on the monetary value of Steam. And that's okay. That shouldn't, as far as I'm concerned, affect our participation here as a community. But when you have to make ends meet, it may limit your availability. And so as you all know, that is essentially what happened over here. But now things are leveling out. And so we took on this job. Now I'll tell you real quick. It was a temp job. It came through a temp agency, and so the first day the day after I touched down, I got to town. A friend of mine took me over to the temp agency. I don't know why I had never thought about doing this before. It's something that's come up many times over the years when I needed work. Just never dawned on me to go to a temp agency. I guess in my mind, I always thought that temp agencies were more for clerical type work, which was something I wasn't necessarily suited for many years. And I always managed to kind of make ends meet. And so I said, well, screw it. Let me give it a shot. And I really didn't think I stood a chance. Well, I didn't realize that now these temp agencies offer a lot of labor work. And so I showed up at the temp agency, and they tell us that they've got a position that doesn't do any drug testing and doesn't care about a background check, which is great for me. And I said, okay, sign me up. They said it was going to be sorting hangers. Now, oh boy, this is going to sound terribly racist, but in my mind, for some reason, I pictured that we would show up like at some like the back of some dry cleaners or a clothing factory somewhere, and we were going to be working for Chinese people and kind of sitting there and sorting all kinds of different hangers. I don't know, I didn't really imagine much more other than that. Pardon me while I take a sip and grab this little roach here, this little clip that does need to be lit. So then the job that now this is the interesting part. Technically the job pays $9 an hour, which sounds like, whoa, how the hell do you get by on $9 an hour with a family? Well, the temp agency offers a bonus for showing up because, and I didn't realize this till later, because they have a really hard time getting people to show up after their first day working there. And so it turns out to be a little over $11 an hour, which still doesn't sound like a heck of a lot of money. But as I said before, considering that Asheville is a fairly affordable city, and in a way seems to be very socially designed for people of the lower socioeconomic brackets. So it turns out to be a half decent paycheck in this particular area, considering the circumstances. The temp agency and otherwise, yes, there are a lot of other jobs out there that pay more. There are probably even better jobs. But again, this one kind of fell into place. It was easy to get. It was very quick. It was in a very convenient location. No drug testing, no background check, and offers a lot of freedom, because one thing I didn't realize about temp agencies is, and I guess I should have known this, because you're a temp, you kind of have a lot of freedom to come and go. So even though from then until now, I've needed to work the full amount of hours to get the most I could out of the pay, to catch up on finances and make ends meet. I'm now at a point, we are now at a point where we're able to transition back into doing some podcasting, some blogging, and a number of other things, which I'm going to go over with you, as I said, today on the show, and you'll see how things are going to develop. One thing that I would like to say is that as things develop and as you start to see improvements in the podcast, for instance, we're investing a little bit of finances into upgrading some of the equipment, connecting multiple webcams. Right now I'm talking to you on a brand new blue microphone, actually, so I should sound a little bit better than I have in the past. And I'm you know what? Forgive me, y'all. I'm struggling to keep up with the chat today because, as I said, I almost feel like I'm learning to ride a bike again. I got so used to it. It's been so long since I worked a full-time job and devoted, every bit of hours I had of the day to either working or sleeping or, or emptying my mind on a PS3. That's something I'm going to talk about too, because gaming is something that's kind of reintroduced into my life recently. So I'd like to talk about that in the coming weeks at some point. I'm going to make a note here as we go forward so that I don't forget. So the job. So they tell us we're going to be sorting hangers. Well, it turns out that this particular company is housed in one of the biggest industrial buildings I've ever been in my entire life. And I grew up in the Northeast, New York tri-state area. So I've seen a lot of humongous industrial buildings. This one is pretty friggin' cavernous. Put it this way, I would love to one day find that it's abandoned and I can throw a rave in there and probably could fit close to 10,000 people. I have a lot of experience with legal capacities, so if I eyeball it, I'm going to say legally probably 7,000 people. So that should give you an idea how huge and cavernous this building is. On the outside, it's kind of, I'm not going to say pretty, but it's kind of sleek and clean, and gives the appearance that it might be some kind of high tech thing going on in there. On the inside, it's just a dusty, huge, fluorescently lit warehouse with a lot of machinery in it. So it turns out that this is what the job entails. Every Target store in America sells clothing, and most of this clothing is hung on racks with these plastic hangers. And if you ever walked around in any kind of one of these department or big box stores, you've probably seen tons of different kinds and sizes and colors and styles of clothes hangers that hang sweaters and tracksuits and underwear and bras and children's socks and sleepwear and scarves, and there's little tiny plastic hangers for things like belts and accessories and all kinds of things, right? Typically, when you go to the register and you buy a piece of clothing, the cashier takes it off the hanger. A good cashier folds it nicely, puts it in a bag. Hopefully you've got your own bags rather than the plastic bags. And they ring it up, and they typically take the hanger, they toss it into some kind of a bin or a box or a rack or something behind the register. What happens to these hangers afterwards? Have you ever wondered? I'm going to tell you. So they eventually get packed into these huge boxes that fit on a pallet, these huge cardboard boxes that fit on a pallet. And I want to say that if they're completely packed, they're probably about 3 to 4, maybe 300 pounds worth of plastic hangers. Okay. Now these things get shipped from every single Target in America to one of two buildings, one in Los Angeles and one here in Asheville, North Carolina. And in these buildings, these boxes get put onto a conveyor. Then I or someone else has to load the box from the conveyor into something called a hopper, which is a hydraulic mechanism that lifts the box up, turns it upside down, and dumps all these hangers onto another conveyor, where a whole line of people are then picking through them and separating them by sizes and shapes and things. At that point, what happens is, if you've ever noticed, a lot of these hangers in the stores, obviously the clothing is usually separated by size, typically, and then there's men's, women's, boys, girls, and such. So to denote the size, usually the hangers have these little colored plastic nibs. Sometimes they're stickers and sometimes they're tags, but in Target stores, you'll notice now that I've told you about this, you'll definitely notice that they have these little colored plastic tabs that have the sizes. So after the people pick them from the conveyor, they put them onto these other conveyors where they hang, and they go through a machine that takes the little colored tabs off. So what you're left with, and now Target in particular only uses white colored hangers. So what you're left with is just the hanger, the main part of the hanger, all one piece of white plastic. Some of them do have metal pieces in them, the little metal clips, and some of them don't. But the idea is to get all the color off of it. Then it continues to go through the conveyor till it falls into another big box, where it's then sent to another hopper, where it's then dumped onto another conveyor, where it's then fed into this gigantic, probably $500,000 machine. I happen to know the blades are each worth $10,000 a piece, and there's numerous blades in this machine. This machine's job, or this machine's purpose, is not to pass butter, but to grind all of the plastic into tiny, teensy-weensy little bits. A magnet extracts the metal, then separates that, and then the bits of plastic are then fed into these gigantic plastic bags that ultimately, when full, hold almost a ton of ground up bits of plastic. It actually holds 1,850 pounds of ground up plastic. That plastic is then shipped to another factory in South America where it is used to create new hangers. So, I know, really exciting. You guys are probably completely off topic in the chat because I'm sitting here talking your ear off about what the hell happens to all the plastic hangers at Target. Well, there's a reason why I'm telling you about this. This is gonna all come into play in the coming weeks as we develop this 5-part series on Asheville and continue to develop the podcast and all the other things that I'm going to tell you about today that are going to all coincide and work hand in hand. All right. So as you know, over the last several years since I started this show, one of the big things that I focused on a lot is sustainability, zero waste, what I call the plastic problem, which is namely that most, single-use plastic and otherwise ultimately makes its way from our waste stream into our environment. And our primary concern is how it makes its way into the oceans and is quite literally killing off all marine and avian species. And that, if it continues at the alarming rate that it's happening now, will ultimately affect the entire ecosystem, which absolutely does affect us and every other living creature on the planet. One of the things I talked about in the past is how I learned over the years to stop worrying so much about the planet itself, because essentially the planet, although it can be considered a living organism, it's going to be just fine with or without us. And what our main concern really should be, and really I think has become in recent years, is our own health, our own well-being, because we ultimately won't have a proper healthy environment on which to grow food, on which to forage, on which to build, on which to breathe, and we will run out of, we won't be able to grow food, and we'll run out of species of animals that we can eat. And I mean, that will happen. There are a lot of people around the planet now addressing these issues. I do think it's a little bit slow, and some of it might be too little too late. The jury's still out on that one. But here's why I bring up the job and why it's going to become important in the coming weeks. It is a temp job, and I've been there a few months, and my wife's working there as well. And ultimately, our plan is to transition back into doing what we want to do for a living, and starting some of the businesses that we've been wanting to start, and making a living a lot, doing working from home and doing a lot, our own thing, and we are going to be able to do that. However, I'm going to produce a piece about this particular organization, because while on the surface, if I was just to tell kind of the layperson about this company and say, well, they're recycling plastic hangers and they, grind them up and they send them somewhere else, and you're thinking, okay, it's a recycling process, so that particular plastic isn't making its way into the waste stream, isn't making its way into the environment. Not true. Absolutely not true. And what's really interesting to me, why it's kind of why I want to hold on to this job for now, and it's really opened my eyes to a lot of things, not necessarily things I didn't know, but you guys have heard me talk a lot about recycling and zero waste and repurposing and reusing and upcycling and all these wonderful things that those of us crazy hippies talk about. And I had Bea Johnson on my show one time. She's a best-selling author of Zero Waste Home, world-renowned expert and lecturer on zero waste and sustainability in the environment. And one of the things I discussed with her on the show was about why recycling. So if you know about zero waste, there's 5 R's: refuse, reduce, reuse, rot, and recycle. So refuse anything you do not need, reduce the things that you use, repurpose, and rot, which is composting, and then recycle is the very last R. And there's a reason why she made a point of making that the very last R, because there's a lot of misconceptions about recycling. Okay, one of the statistics that has hit the mainstream recently, it's something we've known for a very long time, but it's only recently hit the mainstream and become a very serious talking point. And you can look at CNN, you can look at National Geographic, you can look at all the mainstream news sources. There've been cover articles. There's been, major reports on mainstream television about the plastic problem. And so one of the most staggering statistics, and about a year ago, I would have said to you that over 90%, I'll stop right there. I have to correct that now. It's over 95% of all the plastics manufactured since the 1950s. Listen to this carefully now. Over 95% of all plastics manufactured since the 1950s has not been, never will be, and cannot be, for the most part, recycled. And that's something that is continuing to this day. People have this idea that when you use any kind of plastic, whether it's a gold leaf iced tea or Q-tip or whatever, and you throw it into that blue or green bin, that that it is going to be recycled. Well, most of it is not. First of all, you have to pay attention to what kind of plastics. Not all single-use conventional plastics can be recycled. You have to look at the bottom, the number on the bottom usually. Then you look it up and see whether or not that particular kind of plastic can be recycled. If it can, is that particular kind of plastic being recycled in your area? It very likely may not even be. Also, a lot of recycling centers, what happens is they get inundated with all kinds of people just throwing all kinds of single-use plastics in their blue and green bins, and they don't have the manpower, the time, or the resources to sort through it all. So it actually sits there and even winds up being diverted to a landfill. Yes, that absolutely happens. Okay? And over the years, I've said these things, I've written about these things, I've read about these things, I've heard about these things. I'm now in a position where I've seen this sort of thing with my own eyes, and I can say, as an expert, that these things happen. So these hangers obviously are a kind of plastic that can be recycled, most of them. As far as I know, all of the ones that we process can be. There are a lot of problems here, however. A lot of the hangers come with stickers on them. Sometimes they're soiled. Sometimes they have these paper labels folded and stapled over them. And this facility is not actually set up in a way to truly sort through every single solitary piece of plastic that makes its way onto these conveyors. There are a number of reasons for this. Understaffed, largely because they don't pay enough and it's a pretty shitty job. Yes, Soundwaves, this is a radio show. Why don't you STFU and just listen? I'm kidding. I tagged you in the pre-show post, buddy. So anyway, good of you to join us. Thank you. Don't worry, I'm going to get you guys on the air, but this is my first time back in almost 3 months, and I got a lot. I got some notes here. I got a lot. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Anyway, real quick, let me stop and just big up, a huge big up to all the MSP Waves crew, friends, fam, foes, whatever, because you guys are great. Thank you so much for your patience and working with all of us DJs and hosts. Yeah, there's a reason why I stick with you guys. Probably a few reasons. All right, so back to the whole plastic thing. We're gonna go through this kind of quickly because I'm as I said, I'm gonna develop a series that's gonna take place over 5 weeks, and of course this is an ongoing show, probably for the rest of my life at this point. So we're gonna have plenty of time to really get into details and revisit all these different points that I'm going to bring up today. But this is important, so I want to get through this whole thing, and then we'll get to the more fun stuff. We'll get the shitty stuff out of the way first. So plastics being recycled. So anyway, what ultimately winds up happening is while we aim to produce, I believe it's something like 70,000 pounds of this ground up plastic per day. I would probably say that close to twice that much, close to that same amount, actually makes its way into the dumpsters outside the building. And there, as I said, there's a number of reasons for this. Now, I'm gonna kind of cut myself off because, as I said, as I developed this 5-part series, one of the things we're gonna cover is some of the things that local residents don't know about. Because this does happen to be a very woke town. One of the things that we love about this town, for instance, you will find very little styrofoam. You'll find very little single-use plastic, and some of the stuff you do find is compostable. You'll find a lot of bulk zero waste stores. You'll find a lot of people using their own bags, not using bags at all. There's charging stations for electric cars. There's a lot of tiny houses. There, and as I said before, there's people living off grid in tents and cars and things that are not homeless. So on the surface, you get to know Asheville at first, and you're like, "Wow, this is awesome! This is, this is like a socioeconomic experimental dream," But there's a lot of stuff going on that's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And this particular operation in this humongous building, right behind one of the coolest, health conscious, non-GMO, organic bulk supermarkets I've ever been to, is quite literally helping to destroy the environment. And here's the interesting thing: is this operation is happening here in Asheville. As I mentioned, there's another building in Los Angeles that's doing the exact same thing. There is another building in London owned by the same business that's doing the very same thing. And there's one in Honduras that is manufacturing the new hangers, but also processing hangers in South America. Because yes, there are big box and department stores all over the planet, ladies and gentlemen. There are plastic hangers even in third world countries that need to be processed and recycled. And then here's the interesting thing is that one of the things I started to realize, it started to dawn on me. I said, okay, we're processing every hanger from every Target in America, but we're also processing. We have a smaller operation processing H&M. Where are all the hangers going from the Walmarts and the Kmarts and the Sears and the JCPenney's and the Dots and the Marshalls and, my God, the list goes on and on. The Dollar Generals and the Dollar Trees and like all these stores you go and sell some sort of garments and clothing and fabrics and accessories that require plastic hangers. And I just realized that I have, become part of this thing that I have been talking about and learning about and being, becoming aware of, painfully so, for so many years. And, if I wasn't like this radically outspoken, tree hugging, wanting to become zero waste and kind of ecological Nazi, so to speak, for before, being exposed to this firsthand kind of gives you a whole new perspective. And I'm kind of joking here, not really, but anyway, so pardon me. So anyway, that is one of the things that we're going to cover on the dark side. Back to, and wait, before we go back, it also just so happens that most of their employees are migrant workers, very poor, and have very little options in life. And they're I think that may at some point be another topic that we'll tackle and get into, the whole thing of why, how American or Western consumerism has kind of facilitated the need for people in South America and Africa to migrate into the Western world and have to, work these dead end, meaningless, shitty jobs. Anyway, let's now move over to the light side. All right, so check it out. So I want to give you a little piece of news that isn't I don't have everything, all the pieces in place right now to really disclose exactly what's going to happen. But I met someone recently who is he's sort of an amateur filmmaker. Him and his wife are homeschoolers. They've homeschooled 3 children, 2 adopted, 1 of their own. One of the children, who's now grown up, is special needs. This individual is an amateur filmmaker and animator. He does a lot of Lego animations. He actually won an award for one of his animations. And we've started getting close, really getting to know each other. And he recently came into some money, sold a house. His family sold a house. He came into a little bit of money that he wants to kind of invest. He's had some experiences investing in little business ventures in the past. Some successful, some not. You know how that goes. But that's just, he understands that's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And so he's been looking to get into something else. And so he really likes all the ideas I've been kind of bouncing off of him over the last few months. And it's gotten to the point now where we are drawing up a contract. And in about another, I'd say probably by Monday, we'll have a lot of things etched in stone, and there will be some fiat currency coming my way to do some really, really, really cool things with. And I think one of the things you guys will be most interested in is that this particular individual is also very interested in becoming a crypto enthusiast. He had already kind of started getting interested in it before we met. He'd been doing some reading. He'd been playing around with the idea of because he knew he was about to sell his house and he'd have a few dollars to play with, and he was interested in really getting involved in crypto. The only thing he really knew about was Bitcoin. So you know what I did, guys? I turned him on to Steam it. And I think that one thing that we're going to do here with this little deal we got going on, I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna tell you a lot of really cool and fun things, and there's gonna be a lot of things I think that you guys are gonna want to participate in and be a part of as well. I think we're looking at grabbing some SP and possibly running some contests for some giveaways and some delegations and things as we develop the next few things that I'm going to tell you about. So I think that that's some exciting news for us here on Steam It. So it's not. Don't get super excited. It's not like whale amount of steam. It may not even be quite dolphin amount of steam, but definitely enough to get a little bit excited, enough to be able to do a little bit more building on a higher level than we have before, I think. So that's exciting. Looking forward to that. All right. So the next item on the list here is we are working on a really, really big Kickstarter that is set to kick off on my favorite holiday, Bicycle Day. Yeah. No, it's not Christmas. It's Bicycle Day, and I know that a few of you already know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't know what Bicycle Day is, I'll tell you very quickly. It is April 19th. Originally took place in 1943. It was the day that Albert Hofmann first accidentally dosed on LSD 25 lysergic acid diethylamide, took a bike ride home, and on the bike ride thought he was dying at first. But then, fortunately, he didn't die. He became very enlightened and gave the world LSD. So Bicycle Day is April 19th. Every year we celebrate. I remember when I first time I learned about Bicycle Day was in 1993. It was the 50th anniversary of Bicycle Day. That was my first Bicycle Day, and it's been my favorite holiday since. I didn't actually pick that date to kick off the Kickstarter. What happened was, you'll see as I tell you what we're going to be doing for this Kickstarter. I landed a gig in New York City that happens to be on 4/19. My people's New York City Ravers are doing a really big party up in Brooklyn, which I will give you guys links to if you're in the New York area. If you can be in the New York area, it's the second edition of Get Squanchy. Last year we did a big party called Get Squanchy, a dedication to Rick and Morty. We had somewhere in the 800 people vicinity, I think. NYCR can get anywhere between 500 to 2,000 people at the drop of a hat, in like 1 week's notice. Get Squanchy 2 will probably be, I don't know the venue yet, but knowing my crew up there, they got a great venue. It's I know it's going to be multi-room. I believe it's 3 or 4 rooms. So because I got booked to play on 4/19, and we had already been talking about the Kickstarter and starting it pretty soon, we decided that would be a great day. It's a holiday. I've got a gig. It'll give us plenty of time from now till then to get ready. We're pretty close to ready now. So that's going to happen on 4/19. What is going to happen before 4/19? I'm going to tell you right now. After today, I'm now officially relaunched season 4 of Hangin with Who. So I'll be on the air with you guys every Friday at this time, 6 p.m. Eastern time here on mspwaves.com. As I said, we're going to develop this series on Asheville, and we're going to be, from week to week, you're going to notice small improvements in the production value of the show. You're going to see a higher resolution. Right today there's no webcam, but you're going to see a higher resolution webcam. We've got a really good mic. We may get a second one. We're making some upgrades to like the digital equipment that we're using. For instance, the desktop I've been using all along, I'm going to max out the RAM. Same thing on the laptop, and We've already got a couple of really nice DSLRs for shooting and producing segments of the show, which are going to be pre-recorded and edited. We've got a couple of editors and graphic artists and designers on hand who are going to be working with us. As a matter of fact, I've got someone right now working on updating all the logos and things that and images that I've been using over the years and making them a little bit more modern and more professional and we're going to have, appropriate sized images for the different social medias, because we're still going to be using mainstream social media as well, especially if we're doing a Kickstarter. One of the things that we're going to be doing with this Kickstarter is using it to onboard people to Steam it as well. I'm going to explain to you in a few minutes how that's going to work. So, here's the thing. So you all know that I've been working on music for a long time. I've been DJing for about 36 years. I first started producing and writing music, over 20 years ago. Back in 2006, pardon me. Back in 2006, you guys have heard some of the music that I worked on and recorded with some musicians in a recording studio in Brooklyn. Matter of fact, One Media has played many tracks on the Bring Your Own Tune show. And I've played some stuff for you guys over on SMA over the last year or so. So I've been wanting to really get back into making music full time like I used to. And that was one of the things that I thought that moving to Asheville was going to make that a little bit easier, because Asheville's such a cultural hotspot. There's so many musicians. And it's just so culturally diverse and such a rich music and art scene here that I thought, well, this might be a good city to do that. Well, one of the things that we've been talking about investing in, that is one of the main focuses of the Kickstarter, is building an off-grid, fully solar-powered mobile sound system. This sound system primarily is built with DJs in mind, but versatile enough for live musicians, small bands, videographers, or just someone who wants to plug in an iPhone and hear their music very loud at a barbecue or a backyard party or what have you. So that was something that I've been working on since my family and I we moved off grid. We have a tiny house now. Even though We're not living in the tiny house right now. It's actually closed up. It's been closed up for the winter for the most part, but it's something that we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show or in the coming weeks. In Asheville right now, we're renting an apartment. But anyway, we've been learning a lot about off-grid life and learning about solar power and all these things. And so I thought, well, heck, because I'm a DJ and I podcast and I'm going to be doing music for the rest of my life, I was at a point where I had to figure out how to be able to do that as well, off-grid and solar powered. So what we're doing is we're building, and it's almost done, what is called the STS, Solar Tiny Sound. The very first version of the Solar Tiny Sound is actually going to be marketed primarily towards DJs. And this is what it's going to consist of, okay? It's going... Ron Dunt's got... He's funny. Listening to a solar-powered DJ would be like watching a vegan weightlifter. No, you'd be surprised, man. Let me tell you. The technology for solar has gotten so advanced, so affordable, so high-tech now. I'll tell you right now, the main component that is providing power for the sound system is made by a company that was recommended to me by our friends over at Meadows and Makers, Making Stuff and Jack Dub, had put me on to a company called Renogy. Renogy is a U.S.-owned solar company. You can buy their equipment online. They also sell it at Best Buy. Very moderately priced, very quality components, very easy to use. Most of it's plug and play. They have a tremendous online and phone support. And so we bought some panels for our tiny house. And so I discovered that they make a portable solar generator the size of a briefcase. It closes and folds, has a handle. It's lightweight. And the upgraded version, which actually comes with two extra foldable, collapsible solar panels, provides 120 watts of power and is actually enough to power a small sound system. Meaning this is why it's called Solar Tiny Sound. See, the technology these days with Bluetooth speakers is so good that, you can get a couple of 100-watt Bluetooth speaker that's loud enough, to power, as I said, a barbecue, a backyard party, a band playing on the street corner somewhere, or a small bar, or, a house party, for, very moderately priced and does not require a lot of power, especially if a lot of your components are rechargeable. You only need to use power when you need to recharge them. So you've got a lot of time to use, these components until the battery needs to be recharged, where you're not actually utilizing the power that's stored in the generator. We've done a lot of research. We've figured all this out. It's definitely going to work. We're actually going to be up and running with the Solar Tiny Sound System completely by next week. So it's going to consist of the Renogy solar generator. It's going to come with a Pioneer 2-channel DJ controller. That's going to be connected to a Dell laptop with 16 gigs of RAM, a quad-core processor, and Serato DJ Pro installed with an extra $129 bundle, which comes with Serato Video and some extra effects. This is all going to be packaged together with all the appropriate cables, all the appropriate necessary cables, with a very, very high-tech, very loud and awesome sounding Bluetooth speaker. I'm not going to tell you which Bluetooth speaker just yet. We're testing one out, which we're quite happy with, but we may upgrade to something slightly more professional. We'll have that ironed out by next week, but we do have one speaker that we're testing the system out with right now that is 100 watts and sounds pretty freaking amazing. Now, this is all going to be put into a custom designed, heavy duty, lightweight, military grade, all weather, all terrain multimedia carriage. basically will be kind of like a really heavy duty camping backpack with all-terrain wheels that you could easily, pull or push through the woods, on sand, on dirt, on concrete. The whole thing will be shock absorbent. It will be, very, very, very waterproof. I'd like the material to be hydrophobic. And, as I said, shock absorbent. All the components will fit neatly into this unit, and it will close up, and you'll be able to, for instance, if you decided to go out in the woods and, throw a little rave somewhere with this Solar Tiny Sound and the cops are coming, you should be able to quickly, shut it all down and take off with this thing. Or just look really cool, like showing up at the beach or, walking around town like a DJ. I don't know. Whatever it is you want to do with this thing. So how this is going to work, we're not going to be mass producing these. We're going to build one. We're going to raffle this entire unit worth, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. Off the top of my head, probably about a $3,000 value. And this is how the Kickstarter is going to work. There's going to be 3 tiers for the Kickstarter. For the general public, a ticket is going to cost $50. That's going to give you 10 chances to win the entire Solar Tiny Sound System. That's going to give you a t-shirt with our new logo, which you guys will see next week, which is also going to be organic, locally sourced, ethical, sustainable, and all that cool shit. And it's going to give you a free 1-year subscription to Patreon, where the podcast will continue to live. And we'll talk about the whole Patreon debacle at some point in the coming weeks. I've made the decision to stick with Patreon for a number of reasons. I'm going to stick with that decision. I understand if it upsets you. We'll talk about it. We will, I promise. And I'll be open-minded about it. Anyway, that's going to be the first tier for the general public to have a chance to win the Solar Tiny Sound. The second tier is going to be a $100 tier, which may not necessarily work for the general public, because what that's going to include, it's going to include everything that the $50 tier includes. You're going to get 10 chances to win the Solar Tiny Sound, the t-shirt, and a year subscription to Patreon. But that's going to be marketed towards businesses, local businesses, individual businesses, services and things that may need advertising. And what we will do is, for that $100 tier, we will offer everything you get with the $50 tier plus an ad that will run consistently on the blogs, on the podcasts, on the website, which is going to launch next week, on all of our social media. This will be just, not a commercial, but an ad, just a visual ad, a graphic of some sort. We can run a hashtag campaign. We'll do all kinds of things. We're going to be boosting ads. Right now we have some funds to pay Facebook to run ads. We're going to be, as I said, buying some SP and some Steam and being able to boost posts on Steam it as well. So, and we're going to also promote the podcast. One of the things we're going to do with this 5-part series on Asheville is really push the podcast locally and get a lot of local businesses involved, and really excited about wanting to advertise with us. Then there's going to be one more tier. This is a $500 tier, which is actually going to be limited to only 3 businesses. We're only going to take 3 businesses at paying us at a $500 tier. And this is going to include everything you get with the $50 and the $100 tier. You're going to get 10 chances to win the Solar Tiny Sound. You're going to get actually 5 t-shirts at this point if you're a business and you're buying the $500 tier. You're going to get a year's subscription to Patreon, and this is what we're going to do at the $500 tier. We're going to show up with the Solar Tiny Sound at your place of business or somewhere you want to bring your staff, employees, friends, family, whatever, and have an event. We're going to host and cater an event with top-notch DJs and a band, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. This is all part of the Kickstarter. We're going to shoot this event, and at days after the event, we will have edited a commercial and a short piece to air about your business to air on the podcast for however many weeks in a row. We're not, we haven't quite figured that out. But the commercial, we're going to edit probably a couple different versions, maybe, a 30-second, maybe a 1 minute, maybe a really short one. We will run on the podcast for 1 year, and you get to keep a copy of this commercial to use wherever you want, however you want. You want to put it on FM radio, local AM radio, television, cable TV, play it in your stores, give it to your friends, put it on your website, put it on your social media. I don't care. It's yours to keep. Then, what's going to happen is this Kickstarter is going to run officially from April 19th, Bicycle Day, till... Oh, I got to look this up real quick to give you an exact date. The last day where we're going to actually do the raffle is going to be at Hydrotechnics Festival in upstate New York at Echo Lake. And what I'm doing real quick, I'm looking up the exact dates. Okay, so that happens July 18th through the 21st. So the last day where we're actually going to pick a winner is going to be July 21st at Hydrotechnics Festival, where we will be hosting and catering the New York City Ravers camp with the Solar Tiny Sound, and we have a food truck. We have a food truck that is going to be fully sustainable, organic, non-GMO, locally sourced, and we're going to show up. We're gonna have this big event at Hydrotechnics Festival. We're gonna pick a winner. Whoever wins the Solar Tiny Sound will then host an event with the winner, with the Solar Tiny Sound, with the food truck, with famous DJs, and then this individual gets to go home with the Solar Tiny Sound at the end of that event. After that, we're going to build another Solar Tiny Sound. And, of course, we probably won't need to use Kickstarter at that point, but we'll have our website up and running. We'll have our, business fully up and running. We'll have networked enough to have our name out there. And we'll build another Solar Tiny Sound, probably a little bit different, and we'll do a whole nother raffle and kind of do this process all over again. Now, what we're going to do from 4/19 until July 21st is I have put together a live music project that has come together very, very nicely over the course of the last week or so. Right now, the core unit is DJ, 2 drummers. We have a guitar player who's going to be coming to join us to jam this weekend to see if it all works out and he's down the tour with us. We've got a number of gigs lined up, local gigs playing at local businesses, which we intend to utilize the Solar Tiny Sound and advertise the Kickstarter event at these businesses and talk to them about. And my wife wants me to mention that she's part of the group as well. The only reason why I failed to mention it is because we were still talking about what exactly her role is going to be. She's got a number of different important roles, and we just haven't honed in on exactly what the exact prominent role is going to be. So we're going to be touring with the Solar Tiny Sound, and we're going to be going to all these local businesses. Right now, we've got two businesses lined up for the next couple of weeks. We're also performing at local parks. That's one thing that Asheville is great for is it's such an agreeable, amenable city to this kind of culture. Musicians are playing everywhere. The cops are really cool about it. People are vending on the street without permits, and it's a great city to network and get to know people and make friends and to launch a business, as you can tell. So this is something we're going to do. So now, before I mentioned that we got something going on before we officially launched the Kickstarter on 4/19. After today, after I make the after show post and I put up the recording on D-Sound, D-Tube, whatever, I'm going to work on a fundition. Because our financial backer and we are crypto enthusiasts, and because I'm so passionate about Steam and Steam It, and I'd like to get back to the community. We're going to put up a fundition, and what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start the Kickstarter on fundition, and we're going to offer anybody who donates through the fundition. Now, I haven't decided yet if we're going to keep it at that first $50 tier and call it $50 or if we're going to say, 50 Steam, regardless of what that 50 Steam is worth. We're still debating if we're going to do that. But anybody who gives through the fundition will actually automatically be entered in the raffle at the $50 tier the day that the Kickstarter launches. So once the Kickstarter launches, anybody who's given from now till then on the fundition will automatically be entered at the $50 tier, which means you will have 10 chances to win the Solar Tiny Sound, a t-shirt, and a year subscription to Patreon. And again, I'm not asking for your forgiveness about Patreon right now. We're going to stick with that. It works. Now, one of the really cool things about this whole Kickstarter campaign and how this plays into the podcast is, first of all, it gives us a really good excuse to be running around all over town and shooting and performing and doing all kinds of things and meeting people and talking to these local businesses. And our aim is to only go to local businesses, these breweries, food businesses. There's clothing companies. There's all kinds of places like CBD dispensaries, and there's Asheville is a city that loves the buzzwords that we use on the show a lot: sustainable, organic, local, ethically sourced, non-GMO. These are the things that we want to focus on. These are the kind of businesses that we want to support. So this is one of the reasons why I've decided to be okay with having advertisements and ads running on my blogs, my podcasts, and social media, because we're going to essentially pick and choose who we're going to advertise. I won't advertise McDonald's. I'll advertise Farm Burger because I happen to know that they source their meat very ethically, locally, and it's organic, and so on and so forth. Even if I don't eat meat, it's something I can support. I can support a local CBD dispensary, particularly one that's sourcing their CBD from a farm here in North Carolina. So let me see. Wait, Armchair says, don't worry about Patreon. Listen, as I said, I understand why it would upset some people, but it's kind of a business decision. It's unfortunately, Patreon has been very, very successful for a lot of people. It's really, really worked. There's a lot of podcasters that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, that I look up to, who have used Patreon and continue to use Patreon. And honestly, it's nothing to write home about, but it's actually made me a couple extra dollars with monthly subscriptions. And it's very easy to use. I feel that if we stick with the decentralized web only, and if we stick with crypto only, we're really cutting out a huge part of the population. And while my intention is to have the Steam It logo all over our promotional materials and to be onboarding people while we're out there performing and running the Kickstarter, we need to be able to interact with people immediately. We need to be able to collect revenue immediately. We need to be able to use the funds immediately. And unfortunately, crypto is still at a point where it isn't, so easy. I'm savvy with it now, and I can use crypto all on my own, but I have to be concerned with everybody else who's part of this as well. And while our financial backer is very interested in crypto and is definitely quickly becoming a crypto enthusiast, again, that is just he and I. We still have to interface with a lot of other aspects of business and marketing and things that are going to require us to utilize fiat currency. So that's kind of why we've made that decision. So let's see. What else do we have to cover today? I told you about the fundition, which ties into the Kickstarter. 4/19, we're going to be okay. So let me tell you a little bit more about the live music project we got going on. So as I started to build the Solar Tiny Sound, last week, I wanted to go out and kind of test this Bluetooth speaker I got. And so we went out to Pritchard Park, downtown Asheville, which is, right smack in the middle of downtown. All the tourists, everybody who has to walk or drive through downtown has no choice but to walk or drive past Pritchard Park. And so it's where all the dirty kids and the musicians and the hippies and whatnot wind up hanging out at some point throughout their day. And so there's a lot of musicians, and every Friday, or supposedly the whole weekends, but Friday more officially, there's a huge drum circle that takes place from sometime in the afternoon till about 9:45 at night, when they actually officially close the park. And I want to tell you about that, by the way. Well, let me get through. I'll get to that. So I said, all right, you know what? I noticed, because we don't have the full solar system running just yet. We're going to have that up and running next week. So I needed to find a place to play where I could have some electricity. And I had noticed musicians and people with speakers playing in Pritchard Park, and there were plugs. So I grabbed an extension cord. We went downtown. We set up the sound. We plugged in. We started bumping music. Sure enough, some drummers showed up. It was a little bit cold last week, even though it was the official first night of the year for the drum circle. A handful of people showed up, but they were kind of coming and going. I stayed out there playing music for a couple hours, and towards the end, these two drummers showed up. Turned out they were husband and wife, and they looked at me as I was playing. They said, "Do you mind?" I said, "No, go ahead." I don't know. And we must have played for about an hour. And we got so into it, man. We were so just vibing off each other. And, I've worked with a lot of musicians over the years. I've played in 2 different bands as a DJ. I've had some great experiences. I've worked with a lot of musicians who are really good with DJs. I've worked with a lot of musicians who it was their first time working with DJs. And then I've worked with some musicians who, just didn't really get the whole DJ thing. And these guys just, it was perfect. Everything just vibed right from the beginning to the end. At 9:45, a very nice, elderly, friendly police officer came over and kind of felt bad that he had to ask us to shut it down, because everybody was really loving the music. So that's another thing we've noticed about Asheville is it's just a very friendly city. It's if you're not shooting dope or selling meth on the corner, the cops really don't bother you around here. So anyway, this is what I told the drummers at the end. I said, listen, I've been looking for some musicians lately to get together with and start a new project. This is my idea for the project. We're not a Grateful Dead cover band. He said, okay. I said, but what if a Grateful Dead cover band, not the Grateful Dead, but a Grateful Dead cover band, instead of playing Dead songs, played live hip-hop and EDM? And not only did the 2 drummers eyes light up and smile and nodded their head yes, a couple people who were within earshot who had been listening were that's awesome. That sounds awesome. Yes, yes, yes. It was just such an overwhelmingly positive response from all the people there at that moment that we just decided okay, let's go forward with it. I said, and wait, get this. It's called Hip Hop is Dead. And that was it. That was it. From there, we everybody loved it. We said, yes, 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 let's do it. I think it was the very next day the drummers came over and we had a little powwow with them, and we really got the ball rolling, and I dropped all the ideas on them. I told them about the Kickstarter, the Solar Tiny Sound, and the whole thing. And so we are officially Hip Hop is Dead. We have not finished putting the whole thing together yet. Right now, as I said, it's just DJ, drummers. We're figuring out exactly where my wife is going to fit in. We've got some visual artists. We've got the kids coming up here soon. So as far as I know, my youngest one, Marley, you guys have seen her on D Live. I hate mentioning D Live. She plays ukulele. She sings. She's a B girl. My older one, Lily, she seems to like to rap, and she does graffiti. So we got a whole thing going on. We got a logo that I should have my hands on this weekend, and we are going out tomorrow and Sunday. We're going to be going out to Carrier Park here in Asheville to perform for a couple hours. We're going to shoot it. We're going to edit a video. We're going to put that up for everybody to peep. We're going to go out again on Sunday, either to Carrier Park or Pritchard Park, and we're going to get together with a guitar player from a very, very popular Grateful Dead cover band here in Asheville called Dirty Dead. And it just so happened, my wife and I went to a bar probably about a month and a half ago on a Friday night on a whim. She looked it up, and it was a bar within walking distance from where we were, and she said, there's a Grateful Dead cover band. I'm like, whatever, let's go. We were hungry, wanted to have a few drinks. So it turned out this band, Dirty Dead, was playing. They're very popular locally, and while they do cover the Dead, they were definitely more upbeat, funky, more beat-oriented, and when they played Shakedown Street, that shit was straight up hip hop, and they had an MC come out and rap a couple verses on it, and I thought they were cool as shit. A few days ago, I posted on a Grateful Dead group on Facebook looking for some musicians who might want to collaborate with us, and sure enough, the guitar player from Dirty Dead hit me up, and he is coming out to jam with us this weekend. So, super exciting. Yes, it's funny making stuff. Greg mentioned we could be like Tiny Desk Concert. That's exactly like this. This is what I've been telling people. I've been saying, as far as the sound goes, you want to think Sublime meets Portishead meets Represent, right? And as far as like the visual style goes, something like a Tiny Desk Concert meets Team Backpack. We with the solar sound system, we have the ability to pop up anywhere on any street corner, in front of, outside of, or inside of any business. In a van, on a flatbed truck, on a pickup, at the beach, in the middle of the woods. We have the ability to pop up anywhere, jam for as long as we want, and record and live stream, and that's one of the things that we're going to actually start doing. I don't think we're going to be able to do it this weekend because I've had a little bit of technical setbacks here between the different laptops and cameras and things that I'm trying to use, so I may need one more week on that. But I do have some of you guys will remember a post I made about the mobile Wi-Fi that I invested in some time ago, which is still working great. It's how I'm talking to you right now. So we can take that anywhere, just about anywhere, and live stream through DTube or whatever. And one of the really cool things about this whole endeavor is that the musicians and a lot of the people that we're going to be working with and now and in the near future are largely unaware of platforms such as Steemit and Sola and all these other great decentralized blockchain, built on blockchain, social networking, social media and such. And so this is a great way now to be onboarding people even before we go public with the Kickstarter. And it's also a great way for us to make a little bit of extra scratch while we're out there jamming. And, we'll obviously have a hat, or a jar of some sort for donations. But at the same time, if we're live streaming, we'll be able to, collect a little bit of funds and help to continue further fund this endeavor on top of whatever's happening with the Kickstarter and paid gigs and such. So it's all just really coming together. It's all working out. And John, since you're here, I mentioned earlier, I got to shout out Can Curate. Yes, I will definitely be back to do Blessed Sessions. I apologize for last month. Just, things have just been taking a lot longer to pan out than I expected. But for this month, I will be ready to come back and do Blessed Sessions, which is the last Sunday of every month over in Can Curate. I did actually sign up for a Smoke account. I got approved. My Smoke account got approved actually a couple of months ago. Just have not had a chance to make a post yet because listen, guys, excuse me. I realized that I was going to have to kind of just ignore everything for however many weeks it was going to take to just go to work, go to sleep, go to work, go to sleep, go to work, go to sleep, and catch up on bills and finances and get all this stuff straightened out to be able to get back to doing this and, all the other wonderful, creative, fun things that we want to do in life. And sometimes you just have to do that. Sometimes you just have to say, fuck it. Right now I just got to focus on one thing and get that one thing done. And that one thing was straightening out our finances. A lot of you may remember that, the last car we had got totaled about a year and change ago. We're now at a point where we're about to buy a new car for the family. So we're going to be more mobile. And so it's all working out. It's all working out. And as I mentioned, we do have the tiny house down in Georgia. In Asheville, right now we've been renting an apartment. We may continue to rent for maybe another 6 months or so, but our intention is to build another tiny house here. And we've met, a lot of awesome people who either are already living that kind of lifestyle, transitioning into that lifestyle, or want to. And it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great experience. There's so much. This city is so not only so culturally rich, but it's a great place for children. It's so safe. It's just kind of pleasant, and we everywhere we go we see kids. It's a very child friendly city. A lot of the music venues actually allow children, even at night when there's concerts and DJs and such. It's very dog friendly. You're allowed to bring your dog into a lot of venues. And it's easy to get around. It's, as I said, it's affordable, comparatively speaking. Somebody asked me earlier in the chat about SMA. What's going on with SMA? Well, this is what I want to kind of try to figure out. Right now, I can only commit to being back to MSP on Fridays at this time. I'm back. I've had to give up the Monday slot. I'm going to hold on to this and keep doing this indefinitely. You guys were my first home here on Steam It, and will remain one of my homes here on Steam It. What I would like to do, and I spoke to John about this, doing this possibly with Can of Curate. I suppose it could always happen in SMA if it needs to. My show ends pretty soon. I'm gonna get you guys on the air for the last half hour or so. So my show ends in half an hour on Fridays, because I would have to be somewhere podcasting at this time anyway. I would like to find a Discord server that I could then go to, say an hour after this show. So say maybe not at 8 p.m. Eastern time, but at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and then do a music stream, maybe for 2 or 3 hours on Friday nights. Since I'll already have to be committed to doing this until 8 p.m. I won't be able to really have time to go out and do anything with the music unless it's like a paid gig later at night. So I would like to actually figure out, and we'll talk about this later off the air, maybe if somebody has a slot on Fridays an hour and a half from now, and I would like to go ahead and be able to go back to doing a music show. So that way I will be podcasting only on Fridays. It's one day a week that I absolutely can commit to right now. No problem. It'll work with my work schedule. It'll work with the Kickstarter. It'll work with the band. And Can of Curate, man, I got some lovely flowers over here. I got some edibles. I got a beautiful quartz dab straw. So we could do some shit. We could do some things, guys. I want to start using my smoke account. For real. So let's talk about it. So I believe that I've covered all the important points here, and I think it's time to get some viscosity. One media says I guess I should call the show Viscosity Roadblock, because I had 2 music podcasts until recently, one called Viscosity DMB and one called The Roadblock. Anyway, Zig, if you guys want to, Zig and John and Greg and Pensive, if you guys want to jump on the air together, I'm perfectly fine with that. And yes, John, you may certainly drop a post. Thanks for asking. So I'm going to drag you guys into the live on air room and say hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Zigman, my man, One Media. What's good?
Oh, well, yeah, we've been missing you. It's been a while since we've heard anything from you. actually, Pensive and I've been talking. Pensive does his regular what's Steam It musician, Steam It radio posts. Let me dig one out, but I think he's finally gotten you off the schedule now that you're coming back on.
Yeah. Every week he reaches out to me, and I guess he had to catch up. It's a lot of work, Pensive. I don't know if you're listening to us, but I commend you. I thank you so much for keeping that up week after week. That's a tremendous service you provide for us.
Yeah. There you go. I just pasted it in the text stream there. What's on this week, and it's that's the conversation he's usually having with me. Is JP on? Tell me if there's first. He usually words it like. Tell me if you spot any mistakes in the schedule. And well, I don't know if it's a mistake or it's just a big uncertainty at this point.
All right. Well. So guys, Pensive, are you with us?
I am indeed, yeah.
Yeah, man. Listen, as I said, thank you so much, not only for providing this service for the Steam It community, but for always helping out, being willing to help out as much as possible behind the scenes. You're a great man, and it's good to see that you're still here on MSP and Steam It. And you want to quickly catch us up? I know last I spoke to you, you were still running the $1 a day initiative, which I think I see you're still doing. And you want to fill us in?
Yeah, I keep busy with various things. I change my radio show about every 2 weeks, really. I think it'll be due for another change this week, I think. So I'm still doing the radio show. I still do the daily news things that take a fair old chunk of time. So every day I do all the a summary of all the news off Steam, and I shall pop one in here just in case you haven't seen it.
Yes,
so
please
if you
do.
want a quick way of seeing what's going on in Steam, you can go and read that. And $1 a day is just being revamped in a slightly different form. And another thing I'm doing at the moment is I'm going to drop another link in. Why not? I'm restarted the homesteaders and preppers list that we're trying to rebuild because a lot of people disappeared, and as an offshoot of that, we're also building up a list of homeschoolers and unschoolers. Look, I managed to flood the chat with all my posts there. So
wow, that's great. Asheville's a great city. There's a lot of homeschoolers. I haven't met any unschoolers in particular, but a lot of people who are aware of unschooling. However, there's also a lot of great schools here in Asheville where I would not be opposed to sending my children, and we've actually been exploring that possibility. There's a great charter school, and there's a school called Rainbow School, which kind of seems to run like a democratic school, very, very, very free and kind of radical styles of teaching and learning. So that's something that we'll talk about a lot on the show in the coming weeks for sure.
Yeah, there's quite a few things going on, and in fact, Hash Kings, the game in 3D, is launching in 2.5 hours.
Oh wow!
I don't know if you've Hash Kings. Have you come across that Hash Kings game?
No, I from a little bit I'd heard, but I've been out of the loop for a while, so I'm gonna have to do a lot of catching up.
Yeah, Hash Kings is Canny Curates or Dan over there. And he was doing it as a sort of 2D thing, but he's teamed up with Deluxe, and it's going to be a 3D thing, which I had a little peek earlier.
Awesome.
Which is rather snazzy. So they're launching it, I think, 2 p.m. UTC. So it's 2.5 hours from now, if I remember rightly, over on Canny Curate, and you can go into a virtual world and plant seeds and grow your plants there.
Yeah, matter of fact, I one more person I failed to grab and drag into the chat here since we're on since we're on the subject. What's up, John? Are you there?
Oh, okay. Hey, yeah, what's up? You guys hear me fine?
Yeah. Since we're on the topic, real quick, man. Well, welcome back to Hanging with Who, and yeah, we're talking about Hash King's new project.
Yeah. First of all, man, happy to see you back. I know
Thank
you've
you.
been busy in life, and yeah, man, I'm really stoked about that. Yeah. So the Hash Kings game is going to be released tonight at 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Wow.
So there's going to be a Hash Kings discussion going on Danny's show, which is Fried Radio. So that's going to be 7 o'clock. Let me pull up an invite. It's cool to drop the invite to Can and Create.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
You all?
Yep. Please
Okay.
do.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. All right. So I encourage everybody to come in. It's like I said, 2 hours and 30 minutes from now, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and there's going to be a discussion, and it's going to be the lunch. And yeah, it's gonna be pretty exciting. I know. I think I met Danny back in December, and I went to his server and I was like, "Well, what's this game all about?" And so, we're gonna be posting this on the Ethereum blockchain. And I was just thinking, like, dude, like, hey, come over to Can Curate. Let me get you on my radio show. And I was like, dude, you need to release this on the Steam blockchain. Like, screw Ethereum. And I gave him Steam Monsters as a reference. I'm like, look at this game. This game is like blowing up, and it's awesome, and the community is already here.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, so it's very exciting. I know he's been working really hard on it. Lots of people were getting anxious, thinking it wasn't going to happen. But Danny, he's a good guy, and he's been working really hard to get things right. And then the partnership with Deluxe, it's going to be a really cool game.
Wow, looking forward to it, man. I mentioned earlier, I used to play a lot of video games when I was a kid. I had a Nintendo when they first came out, an Atari 2600 back in the day on a black and white television, and then I had a PS1 and an N64 were the last like modern game systems I owned until very, very recently. The apartment we moved into, the old roommate left a PS3 behind. So I've been having a lot of fun getting high and playing PS3 lately.
Yeah, I know myself. I really like when I used to play video games. The last console that I was actually playing on was a PlayStation 2, I think. And I was just playing Tiger Woods golf. I'm not really much into video games.
That's funny. Yeah, actually, so one of my favorite games that I'm playing now is from PS2. It's called Katamari. I got to tell you guys about it because it's an awesome game. It's actually an awesome game for tripping. You didn't hear that from me, but it's definitely an awesome game for getting high. And it's like you're like this little green guy that's probably the size of like an ant or something, and some god sends you to Earth to roll a ball around, picking up garbage until it becomes big enough to become a star. And that's pretty much the gist of the game, but it's freaking awesome. It's so much fun. Man, it's definitely good to have you guys. I'm gonna jump over real quick to my one of the Gregs here making stuff. Dude, are you with us?
Hey, brother, how's it going? Good to have you back.
Hey, thanks, man. I got to hear from you for a minute because, man, ever since I've been living in Asheville and thinking about sort of redeveloping the show and really tackling some of the topics that we've covered together and individually over the years, sustainability and DIY and off-grid life and prepping and such. Asheville is a great place for this stuff, man.
Sure is, yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been here, how much you know about this city.
Yeah, that's in my neck of the woods. Yeah, I did a trail crew stint in the Virginias. So I worked on Appalachian Trail Crew for a little while, and we did a little stint there through Asheville and all that. So
Nice, man.
It's a cool little area for sure.
Oh, it's great, and I can't wait because one of the things I was thinking about today as I thought about what I'm going to talk about today is like, for so long now I've focused through from mainstream social media through my academic career and then on to Steam It and I focus so much on learning about sustainable lifestyles and talking about the problems that are happening, such as the plastic problem and sustainability and living off grid and all this stuff. And it's great to sort of do the research and to learn it and to talk about it. And it's great to be aware of the problems that exist and to talk about the solutions. But I've realized that I haven't really focused much on carrying out the solutions, on actually being and doing the solutions, if you will. And so that's one of the things I want to do moving forward as the show develops and the audience grows with us, is I want to do more of the solutions. I want to all of us together to sort of, start to do some of these things that we've talked about, and some of us maybe more than others, and some, a lot of people kind of embrace these lifestyles on different levels and in different ways. And that's what's so cool about it. That's why we like to share these things through our podcasts and our blogs, and bounce these ideas off each other, and some things work and some things don't. And Asheville is a great place for that. And it's just, I'm seeing now how easy it's going to be moving forward to sort of take the show and take our community in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, I really like your idea for doing the
JP.
mobile concerts.
We're not hearing. Is Greg talking? Because we're not hearing it on it.
Yeah, I've been.
I'm
chatting.
only hearing you.
Yes, I hear Greg, and he's coming through.
I can hear him. I'm not sure, Pensive.
Okay, so Pensive, it sounds like it's just you then.
Yeah, I'm here now.
Yeah, that's weird because I see Greg making stuff as being muted.
Yeah, no, he's with us.
Yeah, he's muted, but I just.
All right. So real quick, let's jump to the other Greg, Gregory Patrick. What's up, buddy?
Hey, bud, how you doing, man? It's good to see you again.
Long time no talk, man. And we're headed your way too, man. I know we talked a little bit about possibly doing something with Information War. As you probably heard my spiel earlier, like I'm having a difficult time coming up with more than one day a week to commit to podcasting, and so I'd like to, I'm gonna stick with MSP because right for now because they were my first home on Steam It, and I like the way things go down over here on MSP. But I absolutely love what you guys have. Well, I love what you guys are doing over on Information War, and I love to support you guys. I love using the tag, and a lot of my topics do fit the scope. So, we definitely should figure out where we could kind of fit in each other's schedules in the coming weeks.
All you gotta do is you gotta let me know when this bugging the hell out of you.
Yeah,
you need to talk about it, and get it off your chest, man. Because you can come on anytime, man. Just let me know, especially if you got whatever notice I can get. But you're a bud, so even if it's just show up halfway into the show, I can try to work you in. You know how it is.
No doubt.
Glad to see people hanging out.
Because one of the things I'm focusing on is kind of the local aspect, although we have a global audience, and I love that. We're going to do this 5-part series on Asheville, and Asheville is also a great city for your kind of topics, man. It's a very woke city, and as I was saying to the other Greg, we've all been so focused on some very important things. But I think that together we should maybe like now kind of turn our focus into a more solution oriented kind of focus.
Well, I think the thing we all really need is the apolitical. Try to avoid the narrative. Don't pick sides, but try to be honest with the news. I'm surrounded by cats, by the way.
I was gonna say what the heck was that?
That was a demand. I suppose. But yeah, that's the thing. That's what I think is going to be next, because I think a lot of people are tired of it, and this election cycle is going to be really weird.
Oh,
So
it's
gonna turn
already
a lot of
weird.
people off.
Yeah,
Yeah, no one's going to want to be a Democrat or Republican sooner or later, so they're going to need to figure out what is next, and we can help with that.
Yeah, well, and that's why I really want to keep talking about not just talking about solutions, but doing solutions, because, like, as you said, apolitical to me, when you say apolitical, I take it a step further, and I think, completely turning my back on the political spectrum altogether and only focusing on doing what I need to do as an individual, and what we need to do as a family, and what we need to do as a community, to not even have to sort of entertain the political stage and just move forward doing the right things and creating a better world for ourselves and each other.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. If more people take the approach and be like, okay, let me look at my life, look at yourself in the mirror, and what can I do today and then into the next coming years to make myself a better person,
Yeah.
and also teach my family that, and if everybody took that approach, then maybe we can start approaching these on a global or maybe a national level. We can come to agreements and stuff.
Yeah.
But mostly, seems like they just want to, like, a lot of stuff are misinformed and they're influenced by their friends, and then they start choosing sides, because it's like either it's the cool thing to do or they're pressured to do that. But meanwhile, their life at home or whatever, it's fucked up.
Yeah, and that's one thing that kind of Asheville has opened my eyes to is you hear about different countries and different cities in Europe, for instance, taking like some serious strides towards zero waste or in sustainability. Embracing solar power, for instance, and banning GMO foods and banning single-use plastics and things. And I see that happen just a tiny little bit as I travel around the United States. Nowhere near as much as it needs to happen. But seeing a city like Asheville, where it's like, as I said earlier, sort of this socioeconomic ecological experiment, it's almost like the entire city has embraced a lot of the practices that my family has made an effort to embrace, just individually and as a family within our household, such as getting rid of single-use plastics and to me it's like little things. It's little things we can do on our own, even if you're not living in a city like Asheville. And that's something that I intend to kind of show as we move forward through the podcast and some of the segments that we're going to be producing and developing over in the coming weeks. Is I'd like to show how it's, a lot of people think, well, it's easier said than done. And what if I have children? And what if I have this hustle and bustle, run and gun life? But there's so many little things that we take for granted that we don't necessarily think of each day. And maybe it sometimes that's what it takes, is for someone like B. Johnson, for someone like Dana Martin, for someone like Gregory Patrick or you, or making stuff for myself, to kind of like share what we do on a day-to-day basis, and how, and not only share what we do now, but kind of admit that, hey, we didn't just wake up yesterday and decide, hey, this is what we're going to do. It was a learning process. It was a learning curve. It was, in some cases, it may have been a total struggle, but it's possible.
Yeah, it really is. And just like I know, I think Coca-Cola just released in the last week how much plastic that they use each year with their bottle productions. And that's a step forward for them to even disclosing about how much plastic that they actually use. And that's an eye opener right there. Once you hear those numbers, I'm not sure how much it is. I know it's crazy.
Yeah.
But we get companies to disclose more of that, then it's going to create a movement, this demand, like all of this shit, that it needs to stop. Because I know over here in the coastal cities, a lot of stores are doing away with the plastic bags.
Yeah.
Which it's great. But when you go to the checkout stand, and you got your reusable bag and whatnot. You think you're doing good for the environment, but then you look behind you and all that stuff that's it's packaged in fucking plastic.
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's
it's
go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. You just
you go.
well, it just that's one of the things I noticed even living in a city like Asheville where there's so many bulk stores and there's so many people making an effort and you very rarely see styrofoam. Still, you'll go to a bulk store and what do they have there for you to pick your bulk items? They're plastic bags. So like you may not, like you said, you may not be using a plastic bag to carry your groceries home, but there's tons of plastic inside that reusable bag that's going to wind up in the garbage. And so, like, for instance, one of the solutions that we could focus on, and I personally, my wife and I could personally teach people, is that we take our own little containers and paper bags and even if we forgot to bring a container or if we happen to be out and about and we don't have containers with us and we show up at a bulk store and they only have plastic bags next to the bulk items, we'll go to the register where they very likely have paper bags and ask them for a paper bag. And, it used to be in a lot of other cities that the cashier or the manager would look at you like you were crazy. What the hell's wrong with you? Everybody uses plastic. Just shut up. In Asheville, it's completely normal. They're so used to it that almost everywhere you go, at the very least, has paper as an option. So it's definitely been a huge sigh of relief, but at the same time, it's an eye opener, and that this needs to happen way more and way faster.
Yeah, it's almost like on this plastic bans and stuff. It's almost like they're it's like a illusion, like the lawmakers are like, okay, well, let's do this and get everybody's mind focused somewhere else, and really not thinking about the bigger problem.
Yeah.
Just the mega corporations fucking making all this waste and stuff.
Well, Pepsi, I know, is making a tremendous effort. They've got a big initiative now to reduce a lot of their plastic consumption and waste. Subaru, interestingly enough, my as I mentioned earlier, my wife and I are getting ready to finally buy a car again. And oddly enough, we've really liked the Subaru Forester because it's a great four-wheel drive family car for a hilly, mountainous kind of area, and we like to go camping and such. So the other day, I just found out that Subaru has now officially partnered with TerraCycle. I've talked about TerraCycle a lot on the show. A lot of you probably have seen TerraCycle's logo and don't even realize it on the back of a lot of food items and health and beauty products that you consume. They're a company that was, I'll tell you very briefly if you're not familiar, they're a company that was started by a Rutgers graduate in Trenton, New Jersey to collect people's plastic waste and recycle it themselves. Since then, they have teamed up with Colgate, they've teamed up with Capri Sun, they've teamed up with a lot of major corporations to specifically collect their plastic containers and recycle them and reuse them as different products and items. So their most recent partnership is with Subaru. So that makes me feel even better. We're actually going to be going to a Subaru dealer sometime in the next few days to talk to them.
Right.
So, and that'll probably be something that, for instance, that's another thing that we will include in the podcasts and in the series that we're going to be developing. We'll shoot those kind of things, and we'll be one of the things you guys are going to notice on the show in the coming weeks is we're going to have nicely edited little segments that I'll be able to cut to, and it'll kind of be like a professional podcast.
Well, that's right on the money, dude.
Yeah,
knowing this stuff, this kind of information, like making those kind of decisions and knowing the deeper details and what you see on the commercial, is what it's all about. Because you've noticed, like, this world is nuts lately. You can't trust any of the labels. You can't trust any of the packaging. Like the plastic is sinking into the meat, but then you start buying vegetables on the shelf and you find out they've been sprayed with Roundup.
Yeah,
probably eaten a lot of that for the last few decades. Because they made, a different pesticide illegal. So paying attention to this stuff, staying ahead of it, man, it might even just keep you alive. Throw 10
Yeah.
years. I mean, you'll be all high strung like me. So the 10 years you gain from not eating the poison will equal out with this high blood pressure. But
Yeah.
glad to have other people like doing the research that'll help it. You know what I mean? Say that's what I'm talking about, dude.
Well, that's
you know what?
go on, John.
I was gonna point out something. It's amazing. I live over here where they grow most of the strawberries, and I was arguing with somebody about the plastic bags, or somebody was saying like, oh yeah, plastic bags, blah blah blah. And I look across where I work at, across the road, there's a big strawberry field, probably like 50 acres, and they're laying rolls of plastic onto the ground.
Yeah.
And I can't even tell you how much plastic that is, but it's just crazy. It's like almost like we're fucked.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I have made an effort to take on a more kind of positive outlook on this whole thing. Over the years, I've had a lot of I've struggled a lot with it, and if you listen to some of my older shows, like you'll hear very often I've been frustrated and angry, but I think that if we really focus on solutions, if not just focus on learning the solutions and talking about the solutions, but doing and being the solutions, I think that we'll probably experience a lot less stress, rather than talking about it and producing the stress hormones. We'll be out there doing and probably reducing our stress hormones, to be honest with you.
Thank God for cannabis, huh?
Oh yeah, and as I said, moving forward, you guys will probably start seeing some posts from me on smoke. Although I am living in an illegal state again, so I gotta be a little bit careful.
Yeah.
You
signed up over there already? You already got your account?
I did. I signed up. I got my account approved. Just have like I said, I haven't had time to do anything other than focus on work until today.
Yeah, it's cool. It's that's one thing. There's like a good faction of people on Steam that they look at smoke as the enemy, and then there's a good faction of people on smoke that are on smoke because they just things about Steam that they really hate. And it's like creating like separate gangs and shit like that. But I believe that we all should be one. We should all work together, and if somebody wants to utilize another blockchain for their material, then so be it. Like for me, I usually only post about cannabis, but I will not stop posting cannabis on Steam.
Exactly.
I have so much material, but on smoke, I try to come up with original post over there. But for somebody like you, like you have good material for Steam that you post on Steam, but then you go, hey, I can start posting cannabis on smoke.
Well, since you brought it up, we've only got a few minutes left, but I actually might want to hear a little bit of feedback from Pensif on this. But as I mentioned with this Kickstarter, one of our intentions is to start onboarding people, and not going out there and focusing on Steemit and saying, hey, this is this great site, Steemit, sign up for Steemit. Rather, letting people see what we do, sending them to our website, which will immediately send them to Steemit and everything else. And they're going to naturally ask questions. They're going to naturally be curious. They're going to see the dollar symbols at the bottom of the posts. We're going to talk to them about it. They're going to see the Steemit logo on our promotional material. And, rather than shove it down people's throat, I think, Steemit is still really, in the grand scheme of things, in its infancy, right? Where I think we're still under 3 years old. It took even the mainstream guys like Facebook and YouTube years to catch on and really start being able to monetize as far as fiat goes. And with Steemit, it's still growing. It's taken hit a couple of bumps in the road because of the market. And it's got a couple of things going against it today because people still aren't quite, the general public isn't quite as savvy as they need to be to utilize the decentralized web and cryptocurrency, but that's changing. It's going to continue to change. I think that Steemit is going to be one of the biggest decentralized platforms that's going to experience growth in the coming years. It's still a first of its kind, and things like whale shares and smoke probably wouldn't exist if it weren't for Steemit. However, I think platforms like whale shares and smoke are great because it offers another alternative. It offers another option. It offers the people the ability to monetize even more, to get their stuff out there, their material out there to more people. Listen, when Facebook came out, nobody said we shouldn't have Twitter and we shouldn't have LinkedIn. All that exists and it's all growing. And that's the same thing's going to happen with decentralized web.
Totally.
Pensive, are you with us?
Hello.
Yes. Did you catch any of that, Pensy?
Yeah. I mean, the big thing Steam needs now is numbers. I mean, we really, really, really need numbers. But my feeling is the best route of recruitment is directly into communities, because if people just come in, wander around blind, they disappear very quickly. Whereas, if Canna Curate, for example, recruits people in there, they'll be looking after them. They'll be in a place where there's like-minded people and they share ideas, share votes, and all the rest of it. So
exactly.
I really think communities are the place to recruit people into.
What,
the retention would be a lot higher.
One idea I had, maybe that we're toying with this, is that as we promote the Kickstarter and the band and the blogs and the podcast, is that if people are interested in coming to Steemit, what we may do is say something like, look, here, take a business card with like a QR code on it or whatever, and if you sign up for Steemit, you create your introduce yourself post and tag us, we'll give you 5 Steam or something. I'm just right now kind of pulling it out of my ass, but that's an idea we've been toying with.
You know what, I was thinking about this too. One of my biggest problems recruiting people over is trust issues. The big tech sites have caused. They don't want to come onto Steam because of how much personal information needs to be valid. They're so used to distrusting Facebook and all the other people that steal your information and sell your data and track your movement, and God only knows what else they're doing with that information. So they're so burned out on that. So my positive thing though is, I think time heals all wounds, man. I figure when new sites, you sort of start building public trust up again. Maybe not the big tech sites; they might never get trust again, but the other ones, like even TikTok or something, where they're not spying on you and selling your personal info. It just takes a little while to build the trust back. Like, hopefully, it'll work. That's, like I said, I think the snag with me, person to person, like, you need to actually give them a valid name and a valid phone number.
Yeah.
To make this work.
And a lot of people get upset when I say this, but I still use the analogy of a pyramid scheme. I understand why a lot of people are going to be like, it's not a pyramid scheme, but I like to use that analogy because when kind of speaking to the layperson who's completely unaware and unfamiliar with the decentralized web and platforms like Steemit, because as far as onboarding, that is kind of how it works. You got to kind of go out there and get people excited about it and explain to them like how and why you're excited about it, and that's kind of how pyramid schemes work initially.
Yeah, it's somewhat, and also the reference circle jerk. That can be used as well, too,
Yeah.
And I think there's nothing wrong with that either, But to me, circle jerking is just another word for community, like in Canning.
Sure.
Like you're like if I know you and I respect you and I want to see you succeed, then yeah, man, I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna give you upvotes to your blog, or whatnot. To go back to the onboarding, just to let you know, man, if you have anybody you want to get on, send them over to Canning Curate. I'll sign them up for free account with my RCs, and they don't have to give any personal information whatsoever.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
And another term for circle jerk could be we scratch each other's backs.
Exactly. Upvote for upvote.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it, man. You know how I feel.
Yeah, and actually, to be honest with you, a circle jerk or a Ponzi scheme or whatever, it's not. It's a network, and networks are a little bit more complex when you look at the social topology of the way they're set up. That they're a little bit more complex than anything hierarchical, like a pyramid scheme or even a circle jerk.
Yeah. Guys, I'm going to cut you off because we're down to about 27 seconds, and it's been an absolute pleasure and honor having you guys on the air. Thank you so much for such a warm welcome back to MSP. But I am going to have to let you guys go and then bid the audience adieu.
Next time, don't talk so much, man.
Got a lot of catching up to do, fellas. We'll you know what? I'll probably have another free for all again, maybe the next week or two, and before we start to actually introduce. All done. We're done.
Or maybe we can get you on my show again. That was a good time. I actually got a better microphone now, so